Here in JMC, education has never been this flexible. It's been a year since the pandemic started, and we are proud to say that JMC breaks the limits of the pandemic climate and soars above its dark clouds. Indeed, no virus can stop us in delivering an assured, consistent, and quality education. This school year, to ensure that all learners will get the best learning experience, Jose Maria College Integrated Basic Education has intensified its two learning delivery options. We do believe that here in JMC, no child should be left behind.
Here are the two delivery options of Jose Maria College Integrated Basic Education. Option 1, online delivery. Students who have a stable connection to the internet shall undergo full online classes with our competent teachers on a daily basis. Online video conferencing between students and professors will be limited to 2 hours per subject each week. These online sessions will mostly be utilized for learning processing and delivering supplementary training. This is done to reduce the amount of screen time students spend while completing academics at home. Moreover, students shall also have self-regulated learning time or SLT to work independently on their learning modules. Teachers shall act as online learning coaches, guiding students' learning process. Option 2, self-paced learning. For students who see it as a challenge to secure a stable connection to the internet, teachers shall be providing modules and other instructional course packages where students can easily download on their LMS or learning management system. Students will work on these learning materials and from time to time may need to send their academic work online or discuss their progress with their teachers via email, chat, or video call on a scheduled time. They may attend online classes when their internet connection is stable enough for them to do so. Homeschool Partnership Program. Parents play a vital role in the success of online education. For students in preschool to grade 3, supervision of parents or guardians will be needed. Students should be more engaged in learning experiences. Parents and guardians shall never be a substitute for class and test hours. For students in grades 4 to 12, teachers shall consistently monitor the learner's progress and shall provide assistance at all times during the school day. Education goes on for the Jose Maria College. Your future is our mission. Enroll now!
Indeed, Jose Maria College has never been this flexible. So what are you waiting for? Enroll now!
Good day, everyone! Welcome to another episode of JMC EduTrends, a discussion that informs, inspires, and transcends. To all our first-time viewers, this program streams live on www.facebook/Jose Maria College and on YouTube at JMC EduTrends. Don't forget to type in your comments and questions, send your emojis, click the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you would be notified of future discussions on JMC EduTrends. Without much delay, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the program host of today's discussion.
What a way to start our day, ladies and gentlemen, folks and friends, JMC EduTrends family. Welcome to another episode of JMC EduTrends, a discussion that informs, inspires, and transcends. I hope you liked our new opening billboard. That is so phenomenal. Very fantastic. Thank you so much to our technical team. By the way, I am Lord Vincent Van Mendoza. I am your host, the head of training and development of this great academy. And I'll be with you all through the end of this program as we get into another special episode of the show. This is being broadcast via official YouTube and Facebook channels of Jose Maria College. And in this episode, we will have a discussion on promoting and protecting competitive market in the Philippines. That being said, we have invited a very esteemed resource speaker who will be introduced shortly. And meanwhile, since I believe we have a lot of EduTrends family members joining us now. So let us first do a quick shout out to our JMC EduTrends family joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. All right, I'd like to ask our technical director to flash on screen the ones joining us. There you go. We have Marchi Labus, Stand Strong, J. Marians. Yep, happy 19th founding anniversary to JMC. We also have Ritzi Ingwa. Another JMC EduTrend family member, we have IC Uy. Shout out also to Nimrod Owen. We have EJ Arsena, Brian Dave, Laude. Also joining us is Champagne Ursal. And also joining us is John Jerry Firth. Welcome to the show, guys. I hope they're going to have a great time with us today. We'll get back to you later on. All right, meanwhile, let me do the introduction for our guest speaker. Without further ado, let me now tell you a bit of a background of our speaker. Our speaker for today is a graduate of Bachelor of Law from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City. And he is also the commissioner of the Philippine Competition Commission, the chairman of the Legal Education Board from January 22, 2016 until March 4, 2020. He was also the chairman and the director of United Coconut Planters Life Assurance Corporation. And he is also the vice president for the professional schools of the College of Law of University of Santo Tomas Legazpi Incorporated. Another relevant affiliation or credential is that he is a lecturer from July 5, 2015 until present at the University of the Philippines College of Law in Diliman, Quezon City. And also from July 1, 2015 until present, he is a governor and the president or the deputy governor and a member of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines in Pasig City. Right, ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me in welcoming our guest resource speaker for today? Let's join our hands together for Attorney Emerson Aquende. Commissioner, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning to to your followers and to the students and members of the academic community of JMC. I am glad to be here, and I hope to be able to share the new development in our law, which is competition law. And I look forward to a pleasant conversation with the rest of the watchers at this moment. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Vincent,
so thrilled
for that. Go ahead,
yes,
Lord.
Yep, we are so thrilled, Commissioner, because this is somewhat foreign or new to some, but I know that we'll be learning a lot. But before that, Commissioner, kumusta po?
I'm very well. I am talking to you from Legazpi City in Albay, where I am working from home at this moment. And I hope everyone there in Davao City is as well as I am.
Yes, we are. We just had our festival here. What about there in Legazpi po, Commissioner? Do you have any celebrations as of this month?
No celebrations as of this month. Again, the because of the health protocols, celebrations are mostly online, like what we're doing right now. But things are well, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here remotely from Legazpi City all the way to Davao.
Yep. And on that note, we'll be more willing to listen and learn something new today, straight from your office. Please have your way, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. So, can we have the screen? Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so um, most of you are probably wondering what is competition law and how does it impact Filipinos in terms of our daily lives. So let me just orient you first. So the Philippine Competition Act is actually Republic Act number 10667. It was signed into law in 2015 and became effective in August 8 of 2015. The agency created to implement the law, which is the Philippine Competition Commission, came to life on January 27, 2016. And it formally operated when it adopted the implementing rules and regulations for the Philippine Competition Act on May 31, 2016. Let's move to the next slide. Now, you may ask, why did Congress come up with this law? Because this is anchored on the Constitution, particularly Section 19, Article 12 on the national economy and patrimony, which mandates that the regulation or prohibition of monopolies and when public interest requires, and prohibits combinations in restraint of trade or unfair competition. So this is the anchor of the Philippine Competition Act in the Constitution. So next slide. Now, we will ask ourselves, why do we need competition and competition law? Well, we have first to understand that the Philippines adhere to a free market system. And a free market system means that supply and demand determines what goods to be produced, for whom, and the price to pay for these goods. That means it is the people who will buy and sell products and services who determines what kind of bread the bakers will bake and what kind of bread people will buy. So it's not something that is mandated by a central authority. So we are free to choose whatever we want. And that choice determines what goods will be produced. Because obviously, if we want pandesal, then if there is a demand for pandesal, then the bakers will produce pandesal. And as compared to a situation when if we want to eat bread, but government tells us we do not like to produce bread because it's expensive, we should just eat rice. That is a centrally planned economic system. So here in a free market system, everyone is free to buy and to sell whatever is the demand of the market. Now, what is competition? Because competition law is connected to competition. Competition, in a sense, is a struggle for superiority, meaning to say it's a contest to become the fittest and the strongest. Now, when competition is understood in relation to business, it means that it is the process of rivalry between firms seeking to win customers' business over time. In other words, competition means businesses trying to outdo each other so it can get the most customers to patronize its product or to patronize its services. So what's so important about that? Let's see in the next slide. Okay. So how do businesses compete? So to get your patronage. Kung sa Tagalog, paano ba ang negosyo lumalaban sa kapwa na negosyo para yung customer sa kanya pumunta, hindi dun sa kalaban niya o sa kompetensya niya? Well, first, it is in the price. Obviously, we all buy things and we want to buy the things that are cheaper than the others for the same goods or services. Efficiency. Businesses, so that they're able to price their products or services lower, they will try to produce those goods at the most efficient manner so that they can lower their cost or lower their expenses. Quality. Of course, if the businesses that has the best quality for their products is also something that will gather the interest of consumers. So kung mas maganda yung ballpen niya, yun ang bibilhin mo kaysa sa ballpen doon sa kabilang nagbebenta ng ballpen. Kasi yung ballpen niya, smooth magsulat, samantalang yung doon sa kabila, medyo putol-putol. So of course, doon ka sa quality. And lastly, innovation. In other words, there is development or improvement in the product. So halimbawa, yung lapis, may kasamang eraser kaysa sa lapis lang. So syempre, mas gusto mo yung lapis na may eraser kaysa sa lapis lang. So these these are the factors by which businesses compete. And so what is the effect to us, ordinary Filipinos who are consumers? All of us are consumers because we buy products, we avail of services. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, I think, well, nag-jump ba tayo? But anyway, so what is the benefit of the consumers from competition? So the benefit of consumers from competition, number one, is if there are more businesses or enterprises competing for a customer's patronage, the tendency is prices will become lower. Kaysa sa isa lang ang nagbebenta, walang ibang nagbebenta ng produktong yon, syempre natural mataas ang presyo niya kasi walang iba siyang kalaban. So, one of the benefit is price. The price becomes lower, and when there is competition, there is wider choice. You have more available products to choose from because competitors will try to offer substitute products for the goods that you want. For example, in smartphone, merong Apple, merong Samsung, merong yung Cherry, merong yung Oppo. So the more phones with the same feature being offered, you have the consumers has now wider choices. Sino ba ang mas maganda ang camera? Sino ba ang mas mabilis? Sino ba ang mas matagal ang battery life? So this brings wider choice for the consumers rather than just having one. And additionally, it promotes innovation or development in products. So dati, single camera lang yung phone. Then, yung iba, to be able to get the customers, nagkaroon sila ng back-to-back camera. May camera in front of the screen, may camera sa likod. Then later on, somebody came up with the idea, double camera. May dalawang camera sa likod, may isang camera sa harap para mas malinaw. And eventually, they tried to improve the number of megapixels for the camera for clearer picture. So these are innovations in product. So as competition heats up, companies or businesses tries to come up with better models, better products, better services. And this is because they are competing with each other. As compared to a situation of a monopoly when there is only one seller of a product. Siya lang ang nagbebenta ng produktong yon. So, siya walang pakialam sa consumers. Anyway, siya lang ang nagbebenta nun. So, you have no choice. Whether you like the service or you are satisfied with the quality of the service or product, kailangang bumili ka sa kanya because nobody else will give you the product that you need. So anong tendency niya? Para kumita siya ng malaki, he will not reduce the price, he will even increase it. He will not try to offer you better quality because that will only increase his cost. Anyway, whether his quality is bad or good, you will still buy from him. And whether he develops or innovates his product or makes his product better, he will not spend for that. Why? Because you have no other choice. So that is the situation that we are trying to avoid. A situation where there is no competition because there is only one supplier. Of course, the more supplier of goods and services, the more competition there is. So what is the role of the Philippine Competition Commission? The Philippine Competition Commission is considered as the guardian of competition in the markets. And it protects and promotes competition. Pero ang tanong natin, why do we have to protect competition? Because there may be entities who may want to distort competition or remove competition or lessen competition for their own profit or benefit. Kasi if you're a business, you don't want competition because competition makes things uncomfortable for you because you have to compete. So if you do not compete well, you might lose your business. So some businesses or some entities would like to eliminate competition. How? By preventing, restricting, or lessening competition. And this is done in several ways. So let's move to the next slide. All right. Thank you. All right. So who are now the current members of the Philippine Competition Commission? There are 5 commissioners and a chairman in the Philippine Competition Commission. The current chairman is Arsenio Balisacan, and my colleagues in the commission are Johannes Bernabe and Macario Declaro, who is who hails from Davao. Macario Declaro is comes from Davao. He is a CPA lawyer, and yours truly. There are 4 of us now in the commission because there is one vacancy in the commission. Next slide. So who are covered by the competition law? So as to persons, all persons or entities engaged in trade, industry, and commerce in the Philippines are subject to competition law, including international trade associations. Now, what transactions are covered? All domestic trade, industry, and commercial transactions are covered, and including also international trade, having direct, substantial, and reasonably foreseeable effects in the Philippines. So kahit yung transaksyon nasa abroad, pag makakaapekta yun sa Pilipinas, sa negosyo sa Pilipinas, then that is covered by the Philippine Competition Act. Next slide, please. And who are excluded or not part or not covered by the Philippine Competition Act? Well, essentially, employee-employer arrangements for purposes of collective bargaining. That is outside of the scope of the Philippine Competition Act. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so let's now discuss what are prohibited in the Philippine Competition Act. These are we consider these as the 3 pillars of competition law. And this is how competition is protected in the markets. The first one is anti-competitive agreements. The second is abuses of dominant position. And the third are anti-competitive mergers and acquisition. So we will now discuss this one by one. Next slide, please. Okay. So we're going to take up anti-competitive agreements. This means these are agreements or mga kasunduan na nagbabawas sa kompetisyon. So, what kind of agreements are we referring to? Any type of form or contract, arrangement, understanding, collective recommendation, or concerted action, whether formal or informal. Meaning to say, kahit yung kanilang agreement ay hindi nakasulat, nag-usap lang sila or nag-text lang sila, that is already covered by the Philippine Competition Act. Even kahit nga hindi sila masyadong nag-usap, nag-signal lang silang dalawa ng kamay, na sabi niya, piso sa akin ang benta ko ng ganito, sa'yo, piso din. Tapos na. So that's covered, that's a contract or an agreement that is considered as covered by an anti-competitive agreement. So let's discuss what are these anti-competitive agreements that are prohibited. First, agreements on price fixing. Gustong sabihin, yung dalawang magkakompetensya, okay? Ang nakalagay dito is prohibited per se agreements between and among competitors. Dapat itong agreement na ito ay magkakompetensya ang nag-usap. Anong example? Yung nagbebenta ng Shell gasoline sa kanto at doon naman nagbebenta yung Petron sa kabilang kanto, they're competitors because pareho ang binibenta nila sa iisang lugar at magkalaban sila dapat o magkakompetensya sila dapat. Hindi sila dapat nag-uusap tungkol sa presyo. So, that's prohibited. Price fixing. Halimbawa, yung Shell sa kanto, sasabihin niya, wag na tayong magpababaan ng presyo para hindi tayo magkalugian, para kumita tayo pareho. Let's agree, we will sell diesel at 50 pesos per liter. Wag ka nang bababa dyan. Ako rin, hindi na ako bababa. So that's an example of price fixing agreement. Why is it prohibited? Because there is removal of competition. They will no longer compete with each other. And that is bad for the consumers because they will no longer try to outdo each other to get your patronage. Another one is bid rigging. In other words, yung bidding process, whether public or private bidding, you circumvent that by the bidders agreeing with each other. And that is also anti-competitive. Why? Because the purpose of the bidding is to get the lowest price for the same quality of goods or services. And here, there will be no more competition again because the bidders have talked to each other. And these price fixing and bid rigging violations are also considered as criminal violations punishable by up to 7 years imprisonment. Now, let's move to the next kind of anti-competitive agreement, please. Next slide, please. Next is product limitation, which means to say, nag-usap sila na ang ipoproduce natin, ang ibebenta natin na produkto, ganito lang karami. Para may shortage of supply and therefore we can demand higher prices. So pag nag-usap yung parehong nagbebenta ng produktong yon, that is called product limitation. Or nag-usap sila na, dito lang ako magbebenta sa lugar na to, doon ka lang magbebenta sa lugar na yon. Ang tawag naman doon ay market allocation or division. So in both of these instances, you will see na kung nag-usap sila na babawasan nila ang pag-produce ng goods or kaya maghahati sila ng bebentahan na lugar o kaya tao o kaya produkto, that is also an anti-competitive agreement because the effect again is to remove competition between competitors. And that is again bad for the consumers because kahit saan ka pumunta, hindi ka makakakuha ng produktong yon dahil they decided to produce only a limited number so that they can also increase the price, and you cannot go anywhere to find a similar product. Okay, so these kinds of violation, product limitation and market allocation, are also a criminal violation, punishable by up to 7 years of imprisonment. Next slide, please. The third kind is all other agreements that substantially prevents, restricts, or lessens competition. O lahat ng klase ng agreement na nagbabawas ng kompetisyon sa merkado. And that is also considered as anti-competitive. Okay? So, this is the catch-all. But itong letter C, hindi na siya criminal violation. Administrative violation na lang siya, punishable by a fine by the PCC. Next slide, please. So, the next kind of violation is what we call as abuse of dominant position. What does that mean? Pag sinabing abuse by a dominant business entity, so the business entity that is doing this behavior should be the dominant business. In other words, siya ang pinakamalaking negosyo na nagsusupply ng isang produkto sa isang lugar. So, siya ang dominante. And therefore, he is prohibited from doing certain things. And these are conducts that would substantially prevent, restrict, or lessen competition. Ngayon, kung maliit kang negosyante, hindi ikaw ang pinakamalaking negosyo dyan, hindi ka pwedeng maging violator nito because this only applies to the dominant business entity. Next slide, please. Okay. And what is to be considered dominant? Pag sinabing dominant ka, is you are not affected by competitors, customers, suppliers, or consumers. In other words, you are that big in terms of market share that even if your competitors, even if you increase your price, your competitors cannot do anything about it. Even if they lower their price, it will not affect you because you're that dominant. And what is the presumption of dominance that we have under the law? If you have at least 50% market share. So kung halimbawa sa Davao, lahat ng pork or chicken galing lang sa isang supplier or producer, siya ngayon ang considered as dominant. So if you are not 50%, you do not have a 50% share, then you are not presumed to be dominant. Hindi mag-a-apply sa iyo ang abuse of dominance. So ang tanong, ano ngayon itong mga sinasabi? What are these behaviors or conducts of business that are considered as anti-competitive to constitute abuse of dominance? Let's move to the next slide. So, the categories of abuse of dominance can either be by price or non-price. In other words, the abuse that you do as the dominant business could either use price as a means to abuse your dominance or as to your object or purpose. It can be exclusionary or exploitative. What does exclusionary means? It means to say that it is intended, the action or the conduct that you are performing as a businessman or the strategy that you are employing is intended to drive out your competitors. Meaning to say, na para magsara o umalis ang iyong mga kakumpetensya. Ayaw nating umalis ang mga kakumpetensya ng mga dominant businesses because it will become a monopoly. Kung wala nang ibang nagbebenta ng produkto, yung pinakamalaki na lang na negosyante sa lugar na yan, he will now be able to dictate the price that he wants. The second one is the objective of exploiting. What is the meaning of this? In other words, you are going to excessively make profits at the expense of the consumer. Because you are the only one, you are now able to get as much payment or price for the products that you sell to the point that it has become unreasonable. So halimbawa, nung pandemic, nung nagsimula yung pandemic, siya lang ang nagbebenta ng alcohol sa buong Davao. Natural. Anong gagawin niya? To exploit that situation, na siya na lang ang may alcohol, anong gagawin niya? Itataas niya yung presyo ng napakataas to the point that it is unreasonable already and harmful to the consumers, and that is considered as exploitative. Next slide, please. So ano yung mga sample ng mga abusive conduct or abusive business strategies of dominant business companies? Number one, predatory pricing. Yung mga nag-aral ng management, alam ito. Anong gustong sabihin ng predatory pricing? You sell your product at a loss or at a very low price, lower than your cost, because you want your competitor to go bankrupt. Kasi pag binibenta mo yung produkto mong napakababa, na mas mababa pa sa cost niya, ano mangyayari sa competitor mo? Lalo-lalo na kung ang competitor mo is bago lang na nagbukas ng tindahan. Mawawalan siya ng customer, magsasarado siya. And that is called predatory pricing, and that is prohibited for dominant business entities only. Okay, next one, please. Next one is barriers to entry or expansion. What do? Since you are the biggest supplier of a product, you deprive your competitors of the supply that they need. So what happens is you prevent them from being able to get supplies. An example that is given here is, halimbawa, si Jollibee, siya ang pinakamalaking restaurant chain na nagbebenta ng chicken. Natural, siya ang pinakamaraming binibiling chicken. Si KFC na gustong lumaban, anong gagawin ngayon ni Jollibee? Sasabihan niya yung nagbebenta ng chicken, wag na kayong magbebenta kay KFC or else hindi ako bibili sa inyo. Natural, yung nagbebenta ng chicken, iisipin niya, kung si Jollibee ang umalis sa akin, malaki ang mawawala sa akin. Yung bibili naman sa akin ni KFC, konti lang. So, sige, hindi na lang ako magbebenta kay KFC, kay Jollibee na lang. So, what happens? KFC now is unable to operate because he will not get supply of chickens. So, that is an example of barriers to entry or expansion. Next slide, please. Okay, next one is tying or bundling. What is the meaning of this? Tying is essentially requiring a customer to buy another product, okay, to buy another product not connected with the product that he is buying as a condition to sell the product that you want. Now, bundling, on the other hand, is you sell two products together for the same price so that you have no choice. You don't want to buy the other product, you'll still have to buy it because it's together and there is only one price. You cannot remove the other one. So that is tying and bundling, and that is also prohibited if done by a dominant business. Next one, please. Now, price discrimination is simply discriminating the price for certain goods or services for different consumers. So you sell a higher price to some people because you can do that because you are dominant. Yun nga, wala silang magagawa kasi ikaw lang ang nagbebenta or ikaw ang pinakamalaking supplier doon. So they're forced to buy from you even if you increase your price to them while you give some lower price to others. Okay, next one, please. Restrictions on sale or trades of goods or services, meaning to say, you do not allow the business that you are supplying to sell your products to another consumer, and that is also considered as abusive. Next, please. Okay, margin squeeze is simply lowering the prices from the small vendors that you buy your supply from because you can dictate on them. So halimbawa, yung mga nagbebenta ng kopra, yung mga bumibili ng kopra, sasabihin nila sa farmers, kung ayaw mong ganitong presyo, hindi ko bibilihin yung kopra mo, bahala kang mabulok yung kopra. But the farmer has no other buyer for his kopra. So he is forced to sell his kopra to you even at a very low price. Since you are the only or the major buyer of kopra, wala siyang ibang mabebentahan, o kung meron man siyang ibang mabebentahan, hindi na yun bumibili kasi konti lang ang binibili nun. Next one, please. Unfair pricing or price gouging. Pag sinabi mong price gouging, yun nga, you just increase the price, you exploit your dominance, you increase the price to unreasonable levels, and that is also a form of abuse of dominance. Next slide, please. Product limitation. Again, this is similar to what I discussed earlier, but it also constitutes abuse of dominant position if you limit your production of a certain product because you want to keep the price of that product high. So you induce an abnormal low supply of a product so that there is great demand, very little supply. Tendency is, of course, the price will increase. Next one, please. Okay, now the third kind of prohibited prohibition in the Philippine Competition Act is anti-competitive mergers and acquisition. Ano ba yung merger? Merger is two companies, two businesses becoming one, consolidating into a single one. Acquisition is one business, okay, buying the other business so that the first business now controls the other business. So that is acquisition. You acquire another business to control it. So ang anong example niyan? Halimbawa si Jollibee, yung kumpanya ng Jollibee, binili yung kumpanya ng Mang Inasal. That is acquisition. So Jollibee and Inasal has now a single owner. But they were not merged because they were not joined together. Jollibee still exists separately from Mang Inasal, but they are owned by the same entity. Okay, next one. So this is the concept of merger and acquisition. So ano ang pinagbabawal na merger and acquisition? What are prohibited mergers? Mergers that will prevent, restrict, or lessen competition in the market for certain goods and services. Okay? So pag ang mangyayaring merger ng kumpanya or acquisition ng dalawang kumpanya ay magpapababa ng kompetisyon significantly, then that may also be prohibited by the Philippine Competition Commission. Next slide, please. Okay. So, halimbawa, well, in addition to that, we have what we refer to as an ex-ante merger regime. Anong gustong sabihin nitong ex-ante merger regime? Bago magkaroon ng merger or acquisition, ang nakalagay sa ating Philippine Competition Act ay kailangan muna nilang magpaalam, mag-notify, and get a clearance from the Philippine Competition Commission before they can consummate their transaction and to get a clearance. Because if the study of the PCC will show that the merger or the consolidation will result into substantial lessening of competition, that merger will not be allowed by the Philippine Competition Commission. Ngayon, sino ang mga kailangan magpaalam muna sa PCC bago sila magkaroon ng merger or acquisition? Ang nakalagay po ngayon sa ating regulasyon is yung mga transaksyon involving 6 billion pesos as far as size of party and size of transaction that are 2.4 billion pesos. Anong gustong sabihin lang naman po nito? Ang gustong sabihin, yung kumpanyang magbibili o bibilhin, pag sinabi nating size of party, yung kanyang assets is amounting to 6 billion pesos. So ito po yung mga napapakalaking negosyo. Ngayon, pag sinabi naman natin size of transaction, gustong sabihin yung bibilhin na yung magiging transaksyon na bilihan ng kumpanya ay yung kumpanya ay meron siyang benta, revenue of 6.4 billion pesos. Okay? But under the Bayanihan 2, which was enacted last year in 2000, in the year 2000, September of 2000, the threshold has been increased to 50 billion for the next 2 years, so hanggang 2022. Ang gustong sabihin, ang mga kumpanyang kailangan lang magpaalam muna sa PCC bago sila pwedeng mag-merger ay yung mga kumpanyang 50 billion ang asset o kaya 50 billion ang kanilang bentang kinokolekta sa kanilang negosyo sa isang taon. So, ito ay napapakalaking kumpanyang kailangan magpaalam sa PCC. But even if the company is smaller than 50 billion or 6 billion, but if the merger will result into into substantial lessening of competition, pwede pa rin i-review ng PCC ang kanilang transaction at pawalang bisa ang transaction kung mapapatunayang it will reduce competition in the markets. But that will come after the transaction. So that is called a motu proprio review. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is how you compute size of party. I already mentioned this. This refers to the gross revenue. It should be 6 billion, or the value of the assets is 6 billion. Let's move on. Next one. Next slide. Ganun din. Yung size of transaction, the value of assets in the Philippines is 2.4 billion, or the gross revenue generated in the Philippines is 2.4 billion. Next slide, please. Now, paano nagkakaroon ng review? So, yung kailangang magpaalam sa PCC ng kanilang transaksyon na mag-merge ang dalawang kumpanya o 2 or more companies, or bibilhin ang isang kumpanya ng isang kumpanya rin. So, ang kailangang mangyari is they have to notify the PCC for 30 days. And within that 30-day period, they cannot consummate the transaction. Meaning, hindi nila pwedeng ituloy muna ang transaction sa loob ng 30 days. Mag-aantay sila kung i-approve ng PCC yung transaction. Ngayon, kung makita ng PCC na mukhang merong posibilidad na magkaroon ng substantial lessening of competition, yung PCC ay pwedeng dagdagan ng additional 60 days, yung naunang 30 days, para pag-aralan pang mas maigi ang transaksyon. And that will mean another 60 days of waiting before they can consummate their transaction, or when it is approved by the PCC. But if the PCC does not decide within the 30 days or the 60 days period, then the transaction is deemed approved. Meaning to say, kung hindi magdesisyon yung PCC na i-prohibit or i-approve, kung tahimik lang yung PCC, after 30 days or after 90 days, depending on the situation, the transaction can already proceed automatically. Next slide, please. Okay. What happens when a merger is found to be anti-competitive? It will be prohibited, or it will be required to comply with certain conditions first before they can proceed. Now, what is the effect of violation of the compulsory notification? In other words, may napakalaking kumpanya, nag-merge, hindi nagpaalam, the result is their transaction is void. In other words, their merger will be undone, and they will have to pay an administrative fine of 1 to 5% of the value of transaction. So if the value of transaction right now, the minimum value of transaction right now is 50 billion, that will be 5% of 50 billion. So that will be about 250 million of fine, assuming that it's just 50 billion. If it's a bigger transaction, then the fine will be higher. Next, please. Now, effect of the approval. If the merger is approved, then in the future, it cannot anymore be examined or reviewed. So, hindi pwedeng tingnan uli. Basta in-approve na yan, that is already a pass for the companies to proceed and cannot be reviewed. Next slide. Okay? So, in certain instances, may exception yung merger na kahit yung merger magiging anti-competitive, pwede pa rin payagan in two instances. Efficiency justification, meaning to say, kung yung merger ay magre-resulta ng mas magandang kumpanya na magbebenepisyo ang mga consumers, then that will be allowed. But it must be demonstrated that the merger will benefit the consumers. Like how? Kasi dati silang magkakompetensya, pag nagkaisa sila, hindi na sila, yung kanilang mga gastusin, kukonti kasi hindi na sila maglalaban. And that means lower cost. If that will result to lower prices for the consumers, then that means it will be allowed. But again, the point is, if the merger will benefit the consumer, must be demonstrated. The second exception is what we refer to as the failing firm defense. And that is a situation where yung kumpanyang magme-merge sa isa pang kumpanya ay kasi mababankrupt na siya at magsasarado na rin siya. So wala siyang ibang paraan para mag-survive is sumama siya sa isang mas malaking kumpanya. But this exception means that the proposed merger should be the last alternative, and it should be proven that the company is really imminently in danger of financial failure. So, kailangan ipakita mo na talagang magsasarado na dahil grabe na ang kanyang losses. So, it means to say the financial documents will have to be reviewed and checked. And secondly, that this is the last remedy available. Meaning to say, inoffer na sa iba yung kumpanya, pinakita sa ibang gustong bumili, walang ibang gustong bumili, kundi yung kumpanyang napakalaki lang at magiging mag-isa siya. So, this is the exception. Next slide, please. Then, we can pass this. We can move on to the next one. Next slide. All right. So, what is the consequence if you if you violate the Philippine Competition Act? For non-notification, ito yung dapat magpaalam ka muna sa PCC bago kayo mag-merger. Hindi ka nagpaalam, tumuloy ka na. Ang penalty is 1 to 5% of the value of transaction. Pag sinabi naman na gun jumping, nagpaalam ka nga, pero hindi mo inantay yung 30 days or 60 days para mag-decide yung PCC. So, nagpaalam ka, hindi ka nakapag-antay na, tinuloy mo na. Again, the penalty is 1 to 5% of the value of transaction. So, if it's a 50 billion transaction, which is the minimum now, that will mean a fine of about 250 million at 5%. Now, if it's an anti-competitive agreement, ano ito? Yung price fixing, bid rigging, product limitation, market allocation. First offense is 100 million. Second offense is up to 250 million of fine. Now, abuse of dominant position, price gouging, predatory pricing, and the other things that we discussed, the same penalty. 100 million for the first offense, second offense up to 250 million. Now, same with prohibited mergers, meaning to say the merger is found to be anti-competitive. And the fifth category of violation and subject of administrative fine is failure to comply with the order of or decision of the PCC. The fine is from 50,000 to 2 million up to 2 million pesos in penalty. Plus daily accrual after 45 days. Anong gustong sabihin? Pag hindi ka nagbayad after 45 days na binigyan ka ng fine, magbabayad ka ng same amount every day. So kung binigyan ka ng fine na 2 million, hindi ka nagbayad ng 45 days, after the next day, or the 46th day, you will pay a fine of 2 million again. So pataas ng pataas. And lastly, supplying false or misleading information to the PCC, the fine here is actually up to 1 million pesos. So this is the consequence of violations of the PCC. Aside from that, of course, that if it is price fixing, price fixing, bid rigging, market allocation, or product limitation, there is also a criminal penalty of up to 7 years imprisonment, depending on whether you are found guilty by a regional trial court. Okay, so next one, I think we are almost done. Okay, you also have civil liability, meaning to say the consumers that were prejudiced or were injured because of your violation they can also file a case in the regional trial court to recover civil damages. And for criminal penalties, as I mentioned, the penalty is 2 to 7 years of imprisonment plus another fine of 50 million to 200 million pesos. Next slide, please. All right, so we're done. And that is more or less how the Philippine Competition Act operates. And I would like to say that while we have a preference under the Constitution also for Filipino businesses, di ba sabi, Filipino first, kailangan unahin natin itangkilikin ang mga kumpanyang Pilipino because that gives our economy better situation, plus it gives jobs to Filipinos. But that preference for Filipino businesses should not also violate the anti-competition law. So I will end there, and thank you very much.
There we have it, JMC EduTrends family, the commissioner of the Philippine Competition Commission. We have Attorney Emerson Aquende. Let me do another quick shout out to our viewers joining us on Facebook. Commissioner, please stay with us for a while because we'll be, entertaining the questions. Ang daming nagjo-join sa atin dito. We have Joanna, we have Rafael, Enrico, and then Freshan. Grabe, attorney, I really like the topic. In fact, I have a couple of questions. Kasi nga, grabe, napaka-interesting nung topic. But yeah, meanwhile, we will have a short break, and when we come back, we'll have the Q&A portion. All right, we should also entertain the questions posted on our social media channels. Please do stand by with us, and let us all together watch this.
The world is falling apart. Every day is breaking our heart. What happened to the world? If we're all lost, what happened to the place we call home? Let's fight the sun's enemy. Let's be one, you and me with unity. No matter what pain, no matter what strife, we can make it through with God on our side. So sort of battle we can win. Everyone will be beneath his wings. If we work together, make the choices matter.
Do you want to have a lab life? Are you a person who is curious, process-oriented, accurate, self-sufficient, and fascinated by science? Do you have keen observational skills, good color perception, and manual dexterity? Are you able to work under pressure, work alone and with a team, and are accountable and responsible? Then you might just be one of the many who is qualified for a lab life. Enroll in BS Medical Laboratory Science Technology or BS in Medical Technology at Jose Maria College. There is a vast landscape of opportunities waiting in the field of medical laboratory science work. You can choose where you want to spend your lab life with. Medical technology professionals are mostly sought after in hospitals, private laboratories, university research labs, public health facilities, biotechnology companies, specialty labs, scientific equipment sales. In Jose Maria College, we have highly trained professionals and high-tech facilities to help prepare your future lab life. Enroll in Jose Maria College and flex on the new normal in education with our flexible learning modality for an assured, consistent, and quality education. For more information, visit our website at www.jmc.edu.ph or our Facebook page at facebook.com/Jose Maria College. You can also email admissions@jmc.edu.ph for admission requirements for the BS in Medical Laboratory Science Technology.
And we are back. And as promised, we shall hear the reactions of our JMC EduTrends family joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. And Attorney, ano, because I personally like it so much. So, siguro dapat mauna ako. And yeah, Commissioner, just tell me if it's leading whatsoever. Please raise objections whenever necessary. Hindi ako lawyer, Commissioner. Hindi
No
ako lawyer,
problem.
Commissioner, pero pero welcome yung courtroom phrases dito. Yung unang tanong ko, Commissioner, is hypothetically, this is in relation to yung ating competition agreement. Let's say that you are my boss and employee mo ako sa business mo. Let's say gumagawa tayo ng handicrafts for souvenirs, ganyan siguro sa airport, ganyan. My question is, what if I have decided to also start a business of my own na the same yung niche tulad nung na-establish mo? What if naisipan ko yan on July 20, 2015? That's a day before the law was enacted. Would we still be bound by the law in that case?
The law will not apply, of course, retroactively. It cannot cover acts that were committed before the law became effective. However, if you continue committing the offense after the law became effective, then you will already be subject to the coverage of the law. So if you continue it, even if you started before, then that will still be subject to the coverage of the law.
I see. Commissioner, what is your say? What is your take on may mga freelancing businesses kasi that they produce talents and then they have that anti-competition agreement. Is that allowed sa ating sa law?
I will give you an example of
Commissioner, just to set sorry. Just to set the context. Meron kasing na halimbawa may gitrain sila, then they are bound by a contract na within 5 years or after 5 years na umalis sila dun sa company, they are not allowed to engage in a business na of the same nature. Is even allowed?
Well, it depends. If the period is unduly restrictive of in terms of the span of coverage of the law of the prohibition, it may be considered as anti-competitive. So, alimbawa, for example, I will give you a very good example. Halimbawa, yung may Grab ba sa sa Davao?
Yes po,
Grab?
Commissioner.
So for
Yes,
example,
meron po.
driver ka ng taxi, nag-accredit ka sa Grab. Tapos may nakalagay doon sa kontrata nyo na pag umalis ka sa Grab for a period of 5 years, hindi ka pwedeng lumipat sa ibang ride-hailing platform. Ano bang ibang ride-hailing platform diyan na kalaban ng Grab sa Davao?
We
Meron
have
ba dyan?
Food Panda, Tok.
Yun. So halimbawa, pag umalis ka, hindi ka pwedeng lumipat sa Food Panda, that may be considered as anti-competitive because it prohibits suppliers of services to these online delivery platforms from moving to another platform. And that prevents the other platform, especially if the other platform is a smaller one, hindi dominant. Let's say startup, nagsisimula pa lang, sino ang makukuha niya ngayon na magdadrive sa kanya kung lahat ng nagdadrive doon hindi pwedeng lumipat sa kanya? So that's an example of that.
I see. Thank you so much for the point, Commissioner. Needless to say, yung pinag-uusapan natin, our discussion focuses on the Philippine market. So to speak, Commissioner, what is the present scenario of Philippine business amidst the global health crisis po?
Well, we all know that business is not well at this time, at least for many businesses, because the pandemic has restricted business transactions. Hindi makalabas yung tao, hindi makabili, hindi makapunta ng mall, siyempre bababa yung mga prices. And it is at this time when businesses are suffering and are trying to survive that there may be opportunities for anti-competitive practices and the abuse of dominant position. Why? Kasi lahat ngayon nagko-compete, grabe ang competition ngayon. Kung hindi, magsasara siya. So anong gagawin ng malalaki? Ang gagawin ng malalaki, bibilhin yung maliliit, di ba? Sasabihin nila, lugi na yung negosyo mo. Bilhin ko na lang yan para wala ka ng problema. So if these are the very big companies, the dominant companies buying the small ones so that there will be no more competition in the future when things go back to normal, then that will still be subject to review by the PCC. Ganon din sa abuse of dominance. Siyempre, lahat trying to survive. Kasi kung hindi, magsasara yung negosyo, konti lang yung customer. If the big companies will now abuse their position, like price gouging, tataas nila yung presyo nila kasi sila lang ang nagbebenta. O kaya ang gagawin nila, predatory pricing para sabi nila, nalulugi na yung kompetensya natin. Lalo nating palugiin para magsarado ng tuluyan. Anong gagawin natin? Ibagsak din natin yung presyo para walang bibili sa kanya o kaya kailangan niyang ibagsak yung presyo, magsasarado na talaga yung maliit na negosyong katabi niya. So these are ways that will intensify. In fact, this crisis situation will intensify for competition law to be vigilant to make sure that no abuse of dominant position takes place, no anti-competitive mergers and acquisition occur, so that at the end of the day, our consumers do not suffer.
Great. I think you just presented a strong point on pricing strategies, if I got it right. Speaking of which, Commissioner, kasi di ba there are at least 5 pricing strategies. You have cost plus pricing, yung simply i-calculate mo lang yung ilang cost for that particular product and then mag-add ka lang ng markup. We have competitive pricing, setting a price based on what the competition charges, or parang gayahin mo lang, i-benchmark mo lang yung price niya. We have value-based pricing, setting a price based on how the consumer believes what you're selling is worth. So parang tinanong mo yung consumer, para sa'yo, how much ba ito? Price skimming, setting a high, parang ganun po, setting a high price and selling it as the market evolves. At saka yung pinakalas, ito yung pinaka-familiar sa akin, yung penetration pricing. Mag-set ng low price as we enter the competitive market and then we raise that later. For you po, Commissioner, what do you think is the ideal pricing strategy for the giants at saka for startups?
Okay. Nagbigay mong example yung penetrative pricing. Kasi ikaw yung maliit or ikaw yung papasok na bago. So gusto mong maka-attract ng customer, di ba? Kasi yung lahat ng customer, doon na bumibili sa kabila. So pagpasok mo, pagbukas ng tindahan mo, gusto mong tumingin din sila sa'yo at bumili sila sa'yo. And one way to attract them is what? To offer at a lower price or even at cost. Walang, kumbaga sa ano, wala nang kita, walang tubo. Now, if it is the small ones who do that, there is no violation because you're the one entering. But if it is the big one who will do that so that the small one cannot enter or the small one will close down because malulugi siya, then that is prohibited. Why? Because yung example ng penetrative pricing is what? There will be more competition. So it's better for the consumers. Yung isa, yung predatory pricing, ano mangyayari? Pag umalis yung nagsarado yung mga kumpanya na nagbebenta ng kompetisyon doon sa malaking kumpanya o kaya walang nakapasok na bago, sino ang matitira? Nag-iisa. At the end of the day, ang gagawin nung nagbagsak ng presyo, itataas niya ng todo-todo kasi babawiin niya yung lahat ng nilugi niya sa pagbaba niya ng presyo pag wala na siyang kompetisyon. So, ang bawal doon sa predatory pricing kasi alam natin na pag wala na siyang kompetisyon, babawiin niya yung lahat ng nalugi niya, itataas niya yung presyo niya. So that's why it is not allowed.
Exactly, I got the point. Yun pala yun eh. Pero ako, Commissioner, na personally, I have my reservations kasi what I do is when I enter a competitive market, I already set the price high so that it appears to the target market na yung value mo, yung standard mo is iba to kasi 'di ba may price eh, yung parang ganun. Pero but for a startup, okay lang naman yun, yung ganun.
That's all right for a startup. It's okay.
Ay, salamat. Okay. Anyway, Commissioner, we have one from our audience on YouTube. Here's her question. Are supermarkets and other sellers allowed to control or limit the sale of their supply of essential COVID-19 related commodities as well as other basic necessities and prime commodities?
Okay. So it can be that can be done in two kinds of violation. One kind of violation is yung product limitation. Nag-usap yung dalawang supermarket. Sabi nila, para mas mahal ang alcohol, mas malaki ang kita natin sa alcohol kasi ang daming bumibili ngayon. Sasabihin nila, ikaw, supermarket A, okay, ang ibenta mo lang is up to 100 bottles per day. Ako naman, ganun din. I will only sell 100 bottles a day. But the demand, let's say the demand is 300 bottles per day. May 100 na walang makukuha. Anong gagawin nun? They will try to, what? To bid for a higher price. Sasabihin nila, sa akin mo na lang ibenta, mas mahal ako magbabayad kasi wala siyang makuha eh. Di ba? If you're desperate, takot ka, baka ma-COVID ka, sabihin mo kahit doble ang presyo, bibili ako. So the supermarket can increase their price kasi maraming gustong bumili. So that's one. It's a violation if they make an agreement, if they agree. The other one is if one of the supermarket is dominant, napakalaki niyang supermarket, at ang sabi niya, ang ibebenta lang natin ditong alcohol sa ating lugar ay Rhea alcohol. Hindi natin papayagan yung ibang brand ng alcohol. That is also anti-competitive. Why? Because now you are preventing the entry of a competitive product. So, that can be considered as anti-competitive. Especially if, sabi ng Rhea, tinabihan si Supermarket A, basta kami lang ang i-carry mong alcohol, bibigyan ka namin ng discount. Basta wag ka nang magbenta ng ibang produkto. And this is happening, for example, in certain commodities. There were cases before, but wala pa yung Philippine Competition Commission. na halimbawa sardinas. Yung tuna sardines na in can. Certain companies were enticing the supermarkets not to carry certain brands of competitor sardines. So that may be anti-competitive in nature. Okay, so thank you.
I see, I see. Yeah, we've got another one from, yes, to our audience from YouTube. For example, sir, what if I have an important export business? Is the RA 10667 applicable to business transaction done outside the country?
Not necessarily. Depends on the situation again. Because if you are not a dominant business, then it will not be you will not be covered by RA 10667. So, and if you do not engage in price fixing, then also there is no problem about your business. So, as long as you do not do any of the prohibited acts, you have no problem. At tandaan nyo lang, 3 lang naman ang prohibited. Number 1 is anti-competitive agreements. Yun yung mga price fixing, bid rigging. Pangalawang bawal is abuse of dominant position. Pero bago ka magagawa ng abuse of dominant position, kailangan ikaw yung pinakamalaking supplier of a certain product. Kung hindi naman ikaw ang pinakamalaki, walang problema. And third is mergers and acquisition that are anti-competitive. So, kung hindi ka pa naman magme-merger, walang problema din yun.
All right, I hope that is so clear. We have one question from our end. Ito. During this new norm, how did PPC control the market competition in online businesses? Yeah, tama. And what are some of your ways to protect and promote competition in the market online?
Okay. Ang role lang ang pinaka-role ng PCC is to make sure that there is competition. Okay? That is our role. Other issues like quality, like non-delivery, di ba? Maraming online na hindi dinideliver, bayad ka na, hindi i-deliver. Or kaya yung quality, sabi, yung picture ng binenta sa ng picture sa online, ang ganda, pagdating sa iyo, ang pangit pala. O kaya ang laki-laki nung nakita mo sa picture, pagdating sa iyo, ang liit-liit lang pala nung product. Hindi po yun covered namin.
Versus
expectation
reality.
Against reality. Diba? Yun naman po sa DTI yon. Pero ang sinasabi namin, for example, sa online business na involving competition is, halimbawa, sino ba ang pinakamalaking online retailer ngayon? Si Shopee ba o si Lazada?
Shopee o Lazada? Parang sila
I do not know.
Commissioner.
Let's say it's Shopee. Sabihin natin si Shopee. At si Shopee, namimili lang siya kung sino ang pwedeng mag-online sa kanya. Yung iba hindi niya pinapapasok. Kasi sabi niya, hindi kita type. O kaya si ganitong nagbebenta ng t-shirt, siya lang ang gusto kong magbenta sa akin kasi type ko siya, magkaibigan kami. That can be anti-competitive because now you are preventing another company from being able to sell its product. I will also give you an example about internet service. Kasi may kaso na kaming nadesisyonan on internet. Yung isang condominium building, sabi niya, ang pwede lang magkabit ng internet ditong kumpanya, yung sister company namin. Hindi pwedeng magkabit si Globe, hindi pwedeng magkabit si Smart. Hindi rin pwede si PLDT. Basta yung company lang namin na sister company namin. Sabi namin, that's anti-competitive. Kasi ang problema nun is, other companies are not able to offer their services to the condo occupants. Kaya ang reklamo nila, sabi nila, ang mahal-mahal. Pag kinumpare mo yung doon sa Smart, sa PLDT, kalahati lang yung presyo. Mahal na, mabagal pa. Sabi nila. So, wala kaming choice kasi yun lang ang pinapapasok doon. So, the PCC reviewed that and found it to be anti-competitive. And this can apply to subdivisions, for example. Halimbawa, yung subdivision. Sa subdivision nyo, ang pinapakabit lang doon is one telco. Hindi pinapakabit yung isa. that may be anti-competitive because they are now preventing a competition to take place in that particular subdivision market. Okay, thank you.
Yes po. Minsan may mga interface between agencies or government departments, may na napaka wide ng scope pala ng ito, Commissioner, are businesses or suppliers allowed to raise prices of essential COVID-19 related commodities such as masks, medicine, alcohol, personal protective equipment, and other basic necessities and prime commodities?
Okay. Yun yung pagdating sa pagtaas ng presyo, it depends. It can be price gouging. Di ba? Nag-example ako kanina ng abuse of dominance, price gouging. Magiging siyang price gouging kung yung nagtaas ng presyong nagbebenta ng COVID-19 commodities is a dominant business in the market. So halimbawa sa Davao, may iisa lang or dadalawa lang silang nagbebenta ng face mask. Tapos inakyat nila yung presyo from 10 pesos to 50 pesos per face mask. That may be anti-competitive. Pero kung yung tinaas lang nila yung presyo, mga maliliit lang naman silang negosyo, yung mga sari-sari store dyan sa sa kanto, hindi yan papasok ng anti-competitive market because pwede kang bumili sa iba. Kung mahal sa subdivision nyo, lumipat ka lang sa labas, baka mas mura na ang mabilhan mo. But if too much yung pagka-increase, baka sa DTI ang mag-check niyan because meron silang yung SRP. The DTI and the DOH has SRP, but another agency is responsible for enforcing that.
Great. Yan, Commissioner, that has something to do with the pricing. What about yung sa produce ng supplies? Sa supplies naman tayo, are they allowed to limit or kung ganun po?
Yes, definitely.
Control or limit?
Definitely, if there is agreements among the suppliers to control or to limit the production or even importation para magkaroon ng shortage, that will be considered as abuse of dominant position if those who performed it are the biggest companies with a market share of 50% or more. But at the same time, if they are not dominant, but there was an agreement, as in nag-usap-usap sila talaga na hindi yan, gagawin natin yan na ganitong presyo, that can be anti-competitive. I will give you an example probably na pwedeng relatable to our audience. Halimbawa, nagkaroon ng association yung mga water refilling station. Diba? You're familiar with the water refilling station. Yung kung saan ka ng tubig for your drinking water. Halimbawa, yung water refilling station sa isang city, nag-usap-usap sila, sabi nila, para hindi na tayo magpababaan ng presyo, mag-agree na lang tayo lahat na magkaroon tayo ng association at let's say, call it the Davao City Water Refilling Association. And they all agreed na minimum fee is 50 per jug or per bottle. So that is a form of price fixing kasi nag-usap-usap sila. And that will be a violation of the Philippine Competition Act.
Cool. Yun pala yun. Ito, Commissioner, parang sa perspective siguro ito ng isang estudyante, siguro to siya ngayon, economics or marketing ba? Sabi niya, ang tanong niya is, what are the opportunities and threats given or within a given market or industry? Parang napaka-generic ng tanong no. Siguro, shall we say, siguro in relation to competition, let us say, Commissioner, sa siguro, ano ba yung parang trending ngayon na halimbawa, Commissioner, yung mga online sellers, doon na lang tayo mag-dwell. May mga ba tayo doon? May mga prohibitions?
Well, ang binabantayan namin, Ang binabantayan natin ngayon doon actually is yung mga yung may mga online selling platform, yung doon sila pumapasok para makapagbenta. Yun nga, parang yung Lazada, yung Shopee. Kasi yung mga nag-aano lang sa Facebook, nag-online selling lang, walang problema yon. There is no
Okay.
anti-competitive effect there because hindi naman sila malaki. And at the same time, pangalawa, yung mga ganong, halimbawa, yung nagbebenta lang sa marketplace, sa Facebook, nagla-live selling, wala naman yung anti-competitive agreements. Pero yung malalaki na platform na maraming nakakakita, 'di ba? Parang kita 'yan sa buong Pilipinas. Pag nag-online ka sa Shopee, kahit saan ka, pwede kang bumili doon, i-deliver sa iyo. Yun nga, ang sinasabi ko is if they limit or restrict the transactions by favoring a particular seller or a particular brand or a particular product, then that can be considered as anti-competitive. And
Ayun.
again, it can expose these companies to major fines from the Philippine Competition Commission.
I see. Ito, Commissioner, I think this is very timely. Our businesses engaged in logistics, for example, delivery of yung mga ano bang tawag yan, mga drop shipping ng mga businesses, allowed to impose COVID-19 surcharge in delivering goods or commodities.
Okay.
Is it legal or illegal?
This is not covered by the PCC if it is done by small companies only. Because again, it can be abuse of dominant position. 'Di ba yung sinasabi natin na price gouging. Okay? If the companies that are doing this are the biggest companies, for example, sino ba yung napakalaking delivery? Let's say in Mindanao, the best delivery company is LBC. Okay? And they impose this, and this is without clearance from the regulators, which is essentially the OTR, the LTFRB. Kung wala tong paalam, and they just simply impose this, and it is too high, then it can be considered as, but provided na it's unreasonable. So in that sense, it can be considered as anti-competitive.
I see. I think this is going to be the last one. Hold on. Yes, kasi nakaka-relate din ako in one or another, Commissioner. Ito, is it legal for businesses to mark or assign territories within a barangay, city, province, region, or the country where they can exclusively conduct supply, distribute, or sell their goods and services? For example, kasi, Commissioner, dito sa aming barangay, hindi umaabot dito yung yung Food Panda, Grab Food. Umaabot lang dito yung mga Lazada, Shopee, ganun lang. So how I wish nga sana may food din sa Lazada para, but it will take, of course, how many days pa bago dumating dito, panis na yung Pero ano ba yung ng PPC? Ano bang stand ng PPC dito, Commissioner?
Well, it depends. Kung nag-usap yung Grab tsaka Food Panda, nasasabihin ni Grab, diyan ka lang at dito lang ako, para hindi na tayo maglaban, yun ang anti-competitive. Kasi there is already market allocation. Nag-usap silang dalawa. That is prohibited. But kung talagang hindi lang sila makaabot dyan dahil walang malayo, walang driver na gusto, that is not anti-competitive. Kasi talagang wala pa silang coverage diyan sa area ninyo.
I see, yun pala yun. Yeah, now I finally understood. Pero I'm medyo ironic lang kasi, Commissioner, kasi yung kapitbahay ko sa Food Panda naman siya nagtatrabaho. So I told him, why not ikaw na lang yung i-text ko?
Oo nga, bakit ba? Bakit
diba?
ba hindi? Oo, bakit ba hindi? That's something unusual.
Kaya, Commissioner, hindi naman kami ganun kalayo sa kabihas na tao pa rin naman ako. May internet plan kami, may wifi naman kami. So so ganun po. Parang gusto ko magtayo ng within a barangay lang. Parang ganun. Barangay delivery services. Anyway. Okay, so may pahabol pa, Commissioner, pasensya na po talaga. Sir, is it allowed for a business, a branch to change the original product or prices or abuse their prices?
Well, I don't know exactly how they will abuse their prices, but if they are not dominant, what can be done actually is halimbawa, nagkaroon na ng food panda dyan sa inyo. Siya lang, sabihin natin na dyan sa anong lugar niyo ba? Anong district ba ang lugar ninyo? Yung district ninyo, for example, food panda lang ang delivery dyan. Tapos, sila lang ang nagko-cover dyan. That makes them dominant, di ba? Kasi walang ibang food delivery na nag-ooperate dyan sa lugar ninyo. So, that makes them dominant. And suddenly, they will say, kasi wala kaming kalaban dito. Pag dito ang nag-order, times 2 ang presyo. Pag doon sa lugar na may competition sa Grab yung Food Panda, yung regular price lang. That is a sign of abuse of dominance by increasing their price unreasonably.
Yun. So dapat may reasonable price increase. Yun. All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Please stay with us for a while because we will present you the token of appreciation. But before we do so, that must have been exhausting on your end. I totally understand that. So kaya naman, I'd like to end this with a fast this and that, this or that question. No explanation. You just have to choose between the two options that I will tell you. All right, ready?
All right.
All right. Sige, ito, Commissioner, Coke or Pepsi?
Whatever is available.
Lazada or Shopee?
Depending on what item is cheaper.
Blue or green?
Green.
GCash or Paymaya?
GCash lang ang alam ko eh. Hindi ko pa na-try yung Paymaya.
McDo or Jollibee?
Pag French fries, McDo. Pag burger, Jollibee.
Okay po. Last na lang, PCC or DTI?
PCC, kasi doon ako.
You know. And finally, isn't it rewarding to work in a government department that stabilizes competition in the market? Or
Yes,
what's the joy in working at PCC?
Well, when you see that you're able to make sure that companies do their business fairly and compete fairly with each other, that is the satisfaction that we get. And may I also add, since you have may courses ba kayo on economics and law, di ba? May law kayo. Economics, meron ba kayong course sa JMC ng economics?
Yes po, Commissioner.
Because the PCC, of course, is an agency that hires lawyers and economics alike. Those are the two major competencies that is needed in the PCC, and we hire many economics experts or graduates and law graduate and lawyers. And I'm happy to share that the PCC is one of the few government agencies that is exempted from the how should I put it? Exempted from the salary standardization law, meaning to say we pay our employees higher than what is paid by other regular government agencies.
Wow, hashtag sana all. Thank you so much, Commissioner Emerson Aquende. On behalf of our founding president, Pastor Paulo Kibula, and the whole JMC family, I believe so that we have learned a lot from this timely discussion. And now to formally express our institutional gratitude, may I present to you our this certificate of appreciation. Direct, can we flash it on screen, please? There you go. Let me read the citation of Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway, Sasa, Davao City. Certificate of appreciation is awarded to Commissioner Emerson B. Aquende for his selfless service in sharing his knowledge and expertise as our highly esteemed resource speaker in the webinar Competition Law and the Preference for Filipino Businesses during the JMC EduTrends live stream program given this third day of September 2021 at the Jose Maria College, Philippine-Japan Friendship Highway, sa Davao City, Philippines. There we have it. And Commissioner, please accept this token of appreciation. Any last words po, Commissioner?
Well, I will just say as a parting word that I appreciated the opportunity to be able to share the developments in competition law. And we hope that in the future, graduates of Jose Maria College will consider a career in competition law with the Philippine Competition Commission, especially that one of our planned expansions is to establish a regional station in Davao City in the future.
There we have it. Once again, this is JMC EduTrends, produced by the Jose Maria College Training and Development Department in partnership with the Communications Office. Don't forget to find and follow us on Facebook and YouTube for more updates. For JMC EduTrends, this is your host, Lord Vincent Van Mendoza, saying thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye and keep safe, everybody. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you and have a good lunch.